Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. She touched my arm that night, just lightly, like she didn't mean it, and yet the warmth of her fingers stayed with me far longer than her presence ever did. I should have known then that something was shifting between us. Something quiet, something dangerous. Because when someone looks at you the way she looked at me, like she's carrying a truth she isn't ready to confess, you feel it deep, like a warning whispered against your skin. I wasn't supposed to care. And she wasn't supposed to look back. But she did. Every time. Maybe that's why her betrayal cut the way it did, not loud, not dramatic, but slow and deliberate, like she knew exactly where to strike. And maybe that's why I made sure the world heard the truth she tried to bury. We were standing too close the last time we saw each other, close enough that I could feel her breath, close enough that the air seemed to thicken around us. She looked at me like she wanted forgiveness, like she still wanted something from me. Her eyes wandered over my face the way they always had, soft but searching, as if she hoped to find the boy she once knew instead of the man she created. A man who knew everything. A man who wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I still remember the tremble in her voice when she said my name, the way her lips parted like she was about to confess something else, something deeper. The streetlight above us flickered, brushing a warm glow across her face, catching the guilt in her eyes, the kind that can't be washed away by tears. She stepped closer. And for a second, just one fragile second, it felt like we were standing on the edge of something familiar, something almost tender. Like the past was reaching out with both hands. But then she blinked, and the truth stood between us like a wall we could never climb again. And that's when she realized, I already knew everything she tried to hide. Every lie. Every stolen moment. Every secret she prayed would stay buried. What she didn't know was what I planned to do next. And when I told the world, her face said it all. She didn't move when she realized I knew. She just stood there, breathing unevenly, as if every inhale carried a question she was too afraid to ask. The streetlight hummed above us, its glow sliding across her face, softening the edges of her guilt. For a moment neither of us spoke. Our silence felt heavier than the truth itself. Then she stepped closer. Not enough to touch me, but close enough that the warmth between us rose like a quiet flame. Her eyes lifted, meeting mine with a mixture of apology and something dangerously familiar, something that used to pull me toward her without effort. Say something, she whispered. Her voice was small, fragile, like she already knew she wouldn't like my answer. I should have stepped back. I should have created distance. But instead, I let her presence sink into me, the scent of her hair, the tremble in her breath, the way she clutched her sleeves like she was trying to hold herself together. You knew this would happen, I said softly. She swallowed hard. No. I didn't want this. Didn't want what? I asked, my voice calm, too calm. She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything she couldn't say. Her gaze dropped to my chest, then back to my face, lingering a little too long. That old pull, the one we tried to bury, tightened between us. A single step, a single breath, and it would have broken through every boundary we once swore to keep. You always look at me like that, I murmured. Like what? Like you remember? Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, a quiet shiver ran through her, barely noticeable but impossible to miss. Her fingers brushed mine, not fully, not intentionally, but enough to send a dull ache up my arm. Enough to remind me of the nights we used to stand this close without fear. She pulled back quickly, but the damage was already done. Her eyes flashed, guilt, longing, confusion all tangled together. I didn't want to lose you, she whispered. Then why lie? She flinched. Because wanting you was already wrong enough. The honesty in her voice struck deeper than the betrayal itself. And for the first time that night, I saw it clearly. Her fear wasn't of losing me. It was of wanting me too much. The tension between us tightened, delicate but unbreakable, holding us in a moment that neither of us knew how to escape. Not yet. It was just a moment, only a breath in time, yet something deep and pulsing hung in the space between us. The night air seemed to slow, thickening around our bodies. The streetlight hummed above, casting a soft glow over her trembling lashes, and for a second, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what we would do next. I looked at her. She didn't blink. Maybe she was afraid that if she looked away, I would disappear. Or maybe she wanted to stay right here in this dangerous space where desire pressed against guilt, and longing brushed against fear. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked quietly. Her lips quivered. "Because, if I told you the truth, I'd have to admit it to myself too." I stepped closer. She didn't move back, she only held her breath, as if my nearness alone was shaking something fragile inside her. Our fingers brushed again, this time lingering, warm, familiar. And just when the touch started to deepen, she pulled her hand away quickly, like she was afraid of the fire it was lighting in her chest. "I didn't want to hurt you anymore," she said softly, eyes lowering to the pavement. "And I knew, if I stayed close, I wouldn't be able to stop myself." I lifted my hand near her face, close enough for her to feel the heat of my fingers, but not touching. She raised her chin slowly, her eyes shimmering with something raw, something she had been running from for far too long. There was guilt in them, but there was also longing. A deep, aching longing. "So why don't you stay?" I murmured. She let out a small, broken laugh, barely a sound. "Because if I stay, I won't be able to leave again." Her words struck deeper than any betrayal ever could. Something old and unresolved in me stirred, something I thought I had buried. For a second, I wanted to close the space between us entirely, to pull her in, to let everything we tried to silence finally breathe. She moved forward at the same time I did. Then both of us stopped. The desire didn't fade. It only grew heavier, richer, wrapping itself around us like heat rising from the pavement. We wanted each other, too much, maybe. And that was exactly why neither of us dared to close that final inch. Not yet. The silence between us deepened, thick enough to feel on the skin. It wasn't empty, it pulsed, warm and alive, like something trying to break free between our breaths. She looked at me as if she'd been holding 1,000 unsaid things behind her ribs, and tonight they were finally slipping through the cracks. I took a slow step toward her. This time, she didn't move at all. Her chest rose, halted, then rose again, the kind of breathing someone does when they're standing too close to danger, but they don't want to walk away from it. The streetlight slid down her cheek like a soft stroke. Her lower lip trembled. And in that small, trembling detail, I felt everything she was trying to hide. "Say something," she whispered again, but it wasn't a demand anymore. It was a plea. I shook my head gently. "If I say what I'm thinking, I won't be able to take it back." Her eyes flicked to my mouth, quick, unintentional, scorching. She swallowed hard, as if that tiny glance had betrayed her entire heart. When she looked back up, the fear was still there, but it was standing beside something else. Something fierce. Something hungry. "Then don't take it back," she murmured. My breath caught, sharp, unexpected. It was the closest she had ever come to crossing the line we'd drawn, erased, redrawn, and pretended didn't exist. I lifted my hand again, slower this time, letting the air warm between my fingers before I neared her face. She didn't look away. Her eyelashes fluttered, just once, like her body was bracing for something her mind wasn't brave enough to name. My thumb hovered near her cheek, not touching, but close enough that the heat startled both of us. She inhaled sharply. And somehow, that little sound felt more intimate than a kiss. "You don't know what you're asking for," I whispered. "Yes," she breathed. "I do." The world tightened around us, a pull, a gravity, a burn. Her hand lifted, hesitated, then hovered near mine. Not touching. Just suspended there, trembling with everything she couldn't say. "I wanted you," she said softly, voice cracking. "Long before I ever hurt you." Those words, they hit harder than any truth she'd confessed. I leaned in, not enough to touch her, but enough for her breath to warm my mouth. And she closed her eyes. Right there. Right on the edge of something we could never undo. The moment didn't explode. It just held. Dangerously. Beautifully. Like it was waiting for us to fall. The night shifted around them, the kind of shift you feel in your blood before you see it. A low rumble echoed in the distance, and then the first drop of rain touched the pavement between their feet. She opened her eyes slowly, as if waking from a dream she hadn't realized she was dreaming. He didn't step back. She didn't breathe out. And the rain kept falling. Soft at first, like the sky was whispering for them to stop. But they didn't. She looked up at him, her lashes wet already, rain clinging to them like tiny, trembling stars. Something inside her broke, quietly, beautifully, and she whispered, "I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this." Her voice melted into the air between them. He didn't answer with words. He stepped in instead, closing the last inch they had been afraid to cross. His forehead touched hers, just that, and the warmth of it felt like lightning under their skin. Her breath melted into his. Maybe the rain made everything easier. Or maybe it made it impossible to hide. The world blurred around them. Only the space they occupied stayed sharp. She lifted her hand, hesitating for a single trembling second, then placed it against his chest. His heartbeat kicked under her palm, strong and uneven, like it had been waiting for her touch. He exhaled, slow, shaky. Her other hand rose to his neck, fingertips tracing his skin like she was learning it again after years of forgetting. He shivered, but he didn't stop her. Their bodies leaned in with a gentleness that felt like surrender, not hunger, and yet hunger lived inside that gentleness, pulsing quietly, like an ache finally allowed to surface. "You feel it too," she whispered. He closed his eyes, rain running down his temples, and whispered back, "I always have." Their closeness deepened, not in action, but in the way their bodies aligned, and the way his hand found her waist, steadying her as if he'd been holding that instinct back for too long. The warmth of his palm through the thin fabric of her clothes sent a ripple through her, and she leaned into his touch like it was something she had been missing all her life. He lowered his head, not to kiss, but to rest his lips near her cheek. His breath skimmed her skin, warm, reverent. She inhaled sharply, her body answering before her mind could form a thought. They weren't kissing. But it felt like they were. Every slow breath, every trembling exhale, every soft brush of skin against skin carried the weight of a confession. Her fingers slid into his hair, gentle but desperate, and he drew her closer until the rain softened against their shared heat. Their bodies spoke the words they couldn't say, apologies, desire, longing, forgiveness, all woven into the quiet press of their frames. Nothing exploded. It unfolded. Slow, intimate, breathtaking, two people finally letting go of everything except each other. They stood like that, wrapped in rain and warmth, caught in a moment that felt like the world had finally decided to give them permission. And neither of them stepped away. Not tonight. Morning didn't arrive softly. It slipped into the room like an uninvited truth, pale light stretching across the floor, touching everything they had tried to hide in the dark. She stood near the window, her hair still slightly damp from the rain, arms folded across her chest as if she was trying to hold herself steady. He sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like the answers might rise from the cracks. No one spoke. Not at first. The warmth of the night still clung to them, the breaths shared, the closeness felt, the emotions that had risen too fast to control. But now, in the quiet, the weight of it all settled slowly, piece by piece. She finally exhaled. "Last night felt like a mistake I wanted to make." He looked up sharply. Not hurt, not yet, but caught. Like he braced for impact before she even finished speaking. She turned, meeting his gaze with tired, honest eyes. "Not because you were wrong. Because I was." He stood. "You weren't wrong. You were honest. Maybe for the first time." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to deny it, but couldn't. She ran a hand through her hair, pacing slowly, her bare feet moving soundlessly across the floor. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. I don't know what last night meant. He walked toward her, but not too close. Then tell me what it felt like. She closed her eyes. The memory flickered behind her lids, warm skin, soft breaths, a moment where they finally stopped lying to themselves. It wasn't the act they shared. It was the truth it exposed. It felt. She hesitated, voice trembling. It felt like I'd been running from something that was never chasing me. And when I stopped, you were there. He swallowed, the confession hitting deeper than she knew. Then why do you look like you regret it? I don't regret you, she said softly. I regret the timing. Before he could respond, a knock echoed through the room, sharp, sudden, breaking the fragile morning silence. She froze. He stiffened. Another knock. Then a voice through the door, one that neither of them expected to hear this early on this morning. Are you awake? We need to talk. Her eyes widened. His entire body tensed. Whatever last night had been, love, escape, a truth finally spoken, the consequences had just arrived at the door. The knock on the door felt like the world demanding answers they weren't ready to give. But when she opened it, when the visitor's urgent questions faded and the door finally closed again, something shifted inside her. Something finally settled. She turned back to him. He was standing exactly where she left him, shoulders tense, eyes searching her face like he was trying to read a future neither of them had dared to imagine. You okay? He asked softly. For the first time that morning, she nodded without hesitation. I finally am. She walked toward him, slow steps, steady breaths, as if crossing a bridge built in a single night. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't reach for her, but his eyes softened, warmed, waited. When she reached him, she placed her hands on his chest the same way she had in the rain, gently, almost reverently. He let out a breath he'd been holding for too long. What happens now? He whispered. She looked up, and the morning light caught in her eyes like something reborn, not guilt, not fear, but a quiet decision. Now we stop pretending, she said. About everything. He didn't pull her into his arms. He simply lifted a hand and rested it against her cheek, brushing his thumb softly across her skin, a touch so warm, so steady, it felt like forgiveness and promise at the same time. She leaned into him, letting her forehead rest against his chest. He lowered his lips to her hairline, a kiss that wasn't hungry, wasn't rushed, wasn't trying to claim anything. Just a kiss that said, I'm here. I choose this. I choose you. She closed her eyes. Peace, slow, warm, aching, spilled through her like dawn breaking open a long night. No grand declarations. No dramatic escape. Just two people standing in the soft morning light, finally letting their hearts unclench. She lifted her head, and he pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, a final seal on everything they survived, everything they lost, everything they found again. This time, she whispered, we tell the truth. He smiled, small, tired, real. And when he pulled her into his arms, it felt like coming home to something they never truly left. Not perfect. Not easy. But theirs. And that was enough.